Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Dr. Robin Murphy, and in this episode, I'll discuss the quintessential question of our time. Could a robot really learn to keep a child happy and safe to the point of murdering other people and maybe a dog, but not a nice John Wick type of dog, so that's okay. Yep, that's the premise of M3GAN, that new hybrid horror sci-fi movie, the updated Chucky for our lives. The technical answer? Well, actually, yes, it is possible. We're discovering that the trickiest part of machine learning is not what technique to use, but specifying what we want the robot to learn. And we typically are going to refer to that as the objective function. Well, coming up with an objective function turns out to be hard, sort of the real-world engineering equivalent of all those fairy tales and fantasy movies where you get exactly what you asked for, but you didn't quite phrase it right or think through the consequences. There's a 2018 paper, The Surprising Creativity of Digital Evolution. It has a fantastic summary of totally epic fails in machine learning, where different systems optimize performance to meet what was asked for, but not what was really intended by people with PhDs in computer science. So there's outright cheating, there was lying, a lot of totally unexpected behaviors. And you can read more about that and about machine learning for robotics and how sci-fi stacks up and learning in my Science Robotics article that, behind the paywall on the website. But let's get on and talk a little bit more about the movie and machine learning. One of the strengths of the movie is that the writers don't throw in a lot of jargon and they don't do the Asimov's 3 laws or any of the standard tropes. There's a brief mention of probabilistic reasoning and neural networks, mercifully short. M3GAN's neural network apparently generates lines of code that say something like, delete all log files on days when I kill someone. I kid you not, that was basically the variable names. It's a nice example of self-documenting code. Freshman programmers, please take note. But the point is, that's not how learning is usually visualized. It's not producing lines of code. Rather, it's weights for those gazillion variables in that objective function. The movie does sort of try to address that. The neural net also gets visualized as a rotating sphere, but it's got a disappointingly small number of connections. I mean, after all, let's remember, ChatGPT has about 175 billion parameters. So a soccer ball with connections around it, not going to cut it. In terms of learning, the movie misses that M3GAN would likely have multiple learning objectives. Yeah, there's that whole make sure Katie is happy and safe, and that goes awry. But then there'd be the other learning objectives like learning the layout of the house and the neighborhood and learning the routines of the family and that sort of thing. And don't forget one-shot learning from just one instance, like where Gemma pulls a nice trick on M3GAN to distract her so she can turn the robot off. M3GAN will never fall for that one again. That's one-shot learning. There's other interesting realistic robotic science in the movie as well. To start with, there are actually 2 important robots in the movie. M3GAN, the Elizabeth Olsen look-alike killer robot, gets all the attention, but what about Bruce, the nice robot? Minor spoiler alert here. Bruce is a teleoperated Baxter-like humanoid robot, and it serves as the movie's Chekhov's gun. Like that Caterpillar P5000 power workloader in Aliens, you see Bruce incidentally at the beginning and then wham at the end. All right, so Gemma, the robotics engineer, now guardian to her orphan niece, gives Katie a tour of Bruce, which she amazingly built as an undergraduate. Just nitpicking here, the parts of the robot would be in the $50,000 to $100,000 target range, so that seems kind of unlikely. And building a robot like that would be like saying, Oh, I designed and built a Tesla all by myself in my dorm room. But I digress. Bruce is so overlooked that there aren't any pictures on the internet. I feel bad for Bruce. But back to science. Is Bruce realistic? The sensors on Bruce are mostly realistic. On his head, there's a stereo pair of cameras with rings of LED lights around it. I mean, sure, the robot needs a camera. Might as well put 2 of them in there so that you've got a stereo depth. And they have a LiDAR system in the head. Okay, that's redundant with the stereo pair and pretty pricey, but it's a better sensor and faster to process. So far, so good. Then Gemma proudly concludes the tour of Bruce's head with bump sensors. Bump sensors? In the head? Bump sensors are smaller versions of those clunky bumper car type sensors, on the outside of them that we used to use back in the 1980s and 1990s, but they've been replaced with much smaller tactile sensors. And we put those tactile sensors along body parts that we'd actually expect to be likely to bump into things like arms and legs. We normally don't design humanoid robots to lead with their face. I was also unclear on how Katie was using a glove interface to make Bruce walk. Whatever. But there was so much action at that point, I didn't really mind that the veracity got thrown out into the wind. As a total aside, my favorite method in the movies for controlling a humanoid robot was in Tobar the Great. Tobar as in that's robot spelled backwards, representing the best of marketing minds in 1954. Well, anyway, Tobar was controlled by, wait for it, ESP. Speaking of user interfaces and human-robot interaction, we frequently get M3GAN's point of view, and it has that nice Terminator RoboCop overlay showing she's using biometrics to infer the emotional state of whoever she's interacting with so that then she can adapt her social interaction. And by adapt her social interaction, we mean manipulate the other person. Both are actually active lines of research, how to detect emotions, and how to lie and manipulate people. Yay, human-robot interaction. Also, in terms of HRI, there was probably a hope that the audience would read Katie's increasingly bratty, obsessive dependence on M3GAN as the analog mirror of M3GAN's increasingly creepy, obsessive protection of Katie. Another aside. Mirroring where the robot becomes more human while the human becomes more like robot-like. It's territory nicely covered in Harry Harrison and Marvin Minsky's book, The Turing Option. Okay. Never mind. Really, the kid barely registers as more than a prop. She's not a particularly compelling character, so we really don't care. Anyway, M3GAN as a movie's entertaining in general. Plus, it's a great STEM movie night out. I mean, they're the 3, if you count the robot, M3GAN, are female. 2 of the 3 roboticists are female. The crotchety neighbor is female. The social worker is female. It's a woman's world after all. But not in a force, beat yourself over the head type of way. The tagline for the movie is, friendship has evolved. Well, I don't know about that, but robot movies like this are evolving and getting way better with regards to the science. However, I don't think robot movies are getting better with regards to the concept of product liability and tort law consequences of robots that learn the wrong things and kill people. So maybe we'll get a sequel, M3GAN 2, Breaking Gemma Out of Jail. Otherwise, it'll just be something for us at the We Robot Conference on Law and Robotics to discuss. That wraps it up. If you want to learn more about robot learning, I do have that Science Robotics article on the RTF's website that you can check out. Plus, the website has other science fiction movies and books that have robot learning in them as well. And of course, they're my textbooks. Please do sign up for our newsletter and podcast so you won't miss a thing.